guys, welcome back. So today we're back in studio. Jason joins me once again.
Hey guys.
But we also have a very special guest, Kevin Brittingham from Q. And Kevin obviously helped, actually designed, I think, right? How do we attribute the 8.6 blackout to you? Did you design it? Is it something that your company designed? How do you want me to reference that?
I mean, it's a company project.
Okay.
But it started at my old company, Advanced Armament. So when we did 300 blackout, but we can get into it whenever you want. I'll give you the full background.
Well, so just so folks know, we're going to talk about the 8.6 blackout and maybe a little bit about a 300 blackout, because since we have them on the line here, 300 blackout is easily one of my favorite cartridges. I think one of the most consequential cartridges of the 21st century. And so I really enjoy that cartridge. Oh man, dude, I am a 300 blackout freak. I want everything in 300 blackout. Just put out a 300 blackout AK video. I love it. I just
an AK and 300 blackout.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Palmetto
cool.
State Armory did it. They did. And they did a hybrid gas system, kind of like the OTS-12 Hack 7, where they use a AR-15 style gas tube and divert the gas into a long stroke gas piston, gas puck, if you will. That's what they've done with it. So they're tapping the gas off early. But we can talk about all that, the pressure differences, because 300 blackout between a subsonic and supersonic offerings, big pressure difference there. 8.6, we'll talk about all that, like what are the differences pressure-wise between the supers and subs. But let's just jump into it, Kevin, the history of the 8.6. So we recently posted a video talking about the new 338 ARC. It's not here yet, looking at 2025 sometime. Potentially for that cartridge to hit. The 8.6 blackout is on the market. Guns are available, ammunition's available. But let's find out a little bit about the history of this cartridge, because it's not something that was developed yesterday. What is the story there?
Well, we did 300 blackout, as most people know now, at my old company, Advanced Armament, because the name's actually 300 AAC blackout, and stands for Advanced Armament. So we did that at the request of Navy Special Warfare. And, and that's turned out to be a pretty prolific cartridge. I knew commercially after a couple of weeks that there was real potential, but it's interesting now looking in the rear view mirror. Most of us really love the cartridge for what it is and enjoy using it. But, the ammo and gun companies did not. Like a lot of this stuff that, I've heard, from you guys and many other guys about concerns with 8.6 blackout. Everybody said the same stuff with 300 blackout when we did that.
Good point.
Even Hornady, they made a lot of the ammo for us initially, and they were selling Whisper ammo, which, is really what we commercialized. And going from 300 Whisper to 300 blackout was really, there's a little bit of pressure difference and stuff. It's like 5.56 .223, but the real difference was designing bullets that were correct for the magazine and the feed ramps where it would feed reliably. So the ogive for 308 Winchester bullets is incorrect for proper functioning. And I know people say, oh, well, I've been shooting Hornady 110 VMAX in it for years and it works great. Yeah, your particular gun might, but it's not optimized for feeding across the board. And, that was really the difference with it. And I saw Hornady actually just released a CX round, which is their first bullet, which is the correct shape. And I believe our engineer, Ethan Wassard, did the drawing for him a few years ago for the bullet. But their CX 135 or whatever in 300 blackout is the first bullet they've made that is an actual 300 blackout bullet. And it looks phenomenal. So I can't wait to try that. But during that time, we developed that cartridge. The customers that we had at the time also had SR 25s, and we immediately started working on 8.6 blackout for those guns. And originally we started with 338 Federal, which is a great cartridge for, to me, 300 meters and in. But what we realized quickly is with the SR-25 mag, the case is too long for a big, heavy subsonic bullet. So you would never be able to have very good subsonic out of 338 Federal. And so we actually started working with Hornady, and Mitch Middlestat at Hornady, who's the lead engineer, is the one that said we should switch to a Creedmoor case. It was more efficient. And he worked with Ethan Lassard, my engineer, to pick the length of the case, which I think is 43 millimeters, to be optimized for super and subsonic and feed out of SR-25 mags. So it was kind of the history. We started it then. And then, I was fired from Advanced Armament, and time goes by, and we picked it back up Probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago at this point, and started working on it for a military customer in Europe. And Hornady's been a part of it since then. Hornady made our brass for us. They did sub-X bullets. They were loading. We had a deal to load ammo for it, and it sort of went away over time. But
if you had to put a date on it, about what time, what year was it taking place where you were working on the 8.6 in conjunction with the 300 blackout?
well, I mean, originally the first gun we built in 2011.
Wow. Okay.
But we picked it back up, 5 or 6 years ago, probably. So,
and was that due to military contracts? You just thought that now was the time for the commercial market, or can you even talk about that?
Yeah, I think it was both. We had an idea for a gun that became the boombox, and we had the fixed rifle already, so it started to make sense. And then also one of the military customers in Europe, they've always been very progressive with subsonic, and they've also adopted in their tier 1 unit 300 blackout. But like a lot of the guys, and me for pig hunting or deer hunting and all, I love 300 blackout. I shoot it a lot. But it's marginal with some animals in some situations, and at some distance.
Sure.
And so for us, it's like a complaint about, AR-10s are big and heavy. They are. But, like our fixed rifle, our bolt gun is very compact and lightweight. So that makes sense in a bolt action platform. And we knew we wanted to do an AR-15 with a 308 mag well in it. And that's essentially what the boombox is. And that we would have a lightweight gun for 308, 6 Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor, 8.6, all basically the short action cartridges that work well in semi-autos and machine guns.
So people can better understand, and some folks already know this, but what you're talking about, having an AR-10 sized magwell, an SR-25 sized magwell on an AR-15 sized rifle is something we've seen with DPMS. Did that several years ago with the G2. Then you see the evolution. I mean, Ruger with their SFAR, very compact. I mean, insanely compact. AR-10 POF did it with the Revolution series and some others. And so I've always been intrigued by that because my SFAR blew me away. Extremely good accuracy and so lightweight. It's not much heavier than an AR-15 and 5.56, but it does use SR-25 magazine. So that's a very interesting development, I think, in the AR-10 world. So a lot of people will think of an AR-10 as being this big, heavy, clumsy rifle as compared to an AR-15, but we've seen that dynamic change considerably in terms of designs of AR-10s.
Yeah, it's great to see the Ruger gun. I think for that customer and that use case, which to me, like I love Ruger, great American gun company. And that's just like a general consumer product, right? Yeah. The Ruger gun, the people who buy that gun, their 308 gun, which looks great. It's lightweight. It's lighter than a lot of the AR-15s on the market in a 16-inch. The downside to that gun is, probably overall durability when they shrink it down that far. Because what's difficult is putting the 308 cartridge or an 8.6, 6.5, whatever, in an AR-15 diameter extension and bolt. It becomes difficult for longevity and durability. And then the Ruger too, you see it ships with a muzzle brake. Like you can't put a silencer on that gun and that gun function reliably with and without a silencer. That's really where all of the R&D comes into play. And, when you talk about like the extension and bolt, we're using C350 for both of those. And, for instance, a 36-inch piece of that material, an inch diameter, is $800.
Oh, man.
So the material cost in our bolt and extension is about $250 just for the material cost before we start cutting it. And is it necessary? No, not for the average guy. Like the guy that's going to buy the Ruger gun is probably going to buy it, shoot 500 rounds through it, maybe their entire lives. And that's fine. Ruger offers that product. That's not what we offer. And for instance, the boombox had to last through the military durability test. It's the same as the M4, which is 10,000 rounds for bolt and barrel extension and 5,000 rounds extractor. So that was a year and a half of the development of the boombox. Just that.
It's interesting you brought that up about the SFAR, because those are concerns that Jason and I had about it. And also, it's interesting to note that you can see some of the design elements that Ruger tried to implement to thwart some of those concerns. They use different materials in the bolt carrier. They have a blowout port on the side of the receiver. There's all sorts of stuff they did, and we know that when you lighten the bolt carrier that much, go to an M4 style buffering system, you do increase the forces on the trigger components, all over the place, right? And I'm not even an engineer, but I do know this. And sometimes that'll manifest itself into trigger slap, right? When that bolt carrier slams into that trigger group, we've seen that with some of the SIG rifles. The bolt carrier slams in that trigger group. If that trigger isn't designed for that velocity, that bolt carrier, it'll manifest as trigger slap. And that gets a little painful in the cold. We shoot in like 10-degree weather, man.
Oh, yeah.
That ain't comfortable.
It's not good.
It starts to mushroom that disconnector too.
Yeah, it'll mushroom the disconnector.
Yeah, and it'll break the hammer pins. I mean, there's a reason they have all those holes in the carrier, to vent that gas. But overall, I think they did a great job with that gun. For the price, and for a lot of the stuff you see out of Ruger, I think that gun, that it's a great product for their customer.
Maybe they'll make it an 8.6 someday. So with the 8.6,
maybe.
What was your core audience outside of the military interest in it? For the civilian world, what was the elevator pitch? What was the idea behind the cartridge? What did it bring to the table? Obviously, we've had discussions before, with 300 blackout, when you're talking about a subsonic cartridge, there's only so much energy you can get out of a cartridge when your limiting factor is velocity, right? So the only way to get more energy is to increase the mass of the projectile. And so, but what else? Well, okay. So an engineer is going to answer that. I mean, there's quantum physics out there I don't understand, I'm sure. But I mean, that's a very simplistic take on things. What is the 8.6? What does it bring to the table that maybe the 300 blackout doesn't, or other cartridges in the space, even 338 ARC, which we don't know a whole lot about since it's not out yet?
Yeah. So, when I did 300 blackout, and especially when I did it for another unit in the U.S., the second to adopt it, we did it to replace the MP5 SD for them. And, the pitch there is you have something as quiet as the MP5 SD with subsonic, but you have the ability to engage targets with super to 300 meters. So that was kind of the pitch. We wanted a 4.5 pound gun that gave you everything the MP5 gave you, but much more energy on target. But we saw limitations with it, and you fast forward 10 years, guns are getting lighter. We have more capability. Silencer technology is getting better. So how do we extend that? And with working with the military, for 31 years at this point, at any level, 99.9% of the engagements are inside 300 meters. And, and then how's that equate to hunting? Because I always think the commercial market, when we develop products too, like how much energy am I going to put into something for those units and resources to these units for a product that has no crossover to the commercial market? So for me as the business owner, that's always what I'm thinking. Like I'll do anything for those guys, but let's try to do something that's practical. Because, like if you're a soldier and you're in combat and you're engaging human targets, there's a lot of similarity between, pigs, whitetail, North American game. And with silencers becoming prolific, it's like, okay, everybody is wanting to do, for the military, for instance, when you think about the Navy and they had the Mark 13 rifle, a 300 Win Mag, big, long, heavy gun. Nobody argues with 300 Win Mag for killing, right? It's a great cartridge. But, it's just like 300 blackout. I love it in a lightweight little AR-15. But if I could shoot something with 308, I prefer that. Right. But then I got to carry a bigger, heavier gun, right? And I much prefer 300 Win Mag over 308. But again, bigger, heavier gun. Then I like 300 Norma Mag better than that. So it's just kind of never ends, right? So there's a friend of ours who was a Navy he was a Navy SEAL sniper, and even in spent his last 17 years in Dev Group. So he was a Navy sniper for 25 years. And when he was on the white side, his longest shot, and this is all, the majority of his time was during the war. And his longest shot on the white side was 360 yards in combat. It was with a Mark 13. In Dev Group, his longest shot during the war, so 16 years during the war, his longest shot was 200 yards.
Wow.
Like every engagement, this is a quote from him, I could have made with my 10-inch 416. And so then, you know, I hunt a lot, and you start asking more and more questions. Everything happens inside 300 meters. So does subsonic 300 blackout get you there? No, it doesn't. But do guys, like you see it with 6-arc now, guys want a 1,000-meter gun that is the size and weight of an AR. So how do we get 300 meter subsonic and it provide lethality, and then have supersonic as well to 300 meters, but a lightweight compact gun? And so we had the fix already. That's an easy one. But then it's the boom box, is the gas gun that you need. So the guys need super and subsonic, and a barrel swap only, original magazine, original bolt seems to be the formula. It worked really good with 300 blackout. Jason Hornady told me that it would never be successful commercially. They would make us some ammo for a military thing, but they weren't going to offer it. You know, here we are 10 years later,
Right.
or longer than that now. And we see that it's been successful. So when I went to Hornady, after we were talking to our military customer, it was an easy sell. So we go to them. It's like, it's the same formula as 300 blackout. And now guns are bigger, but here's the fix. And it's not bigger and heavier. And we're going to develop a gas gun that is the size and weight of ARs. And so that was the pitch. And so the initial conversation, them to make brass for some projectiles, was an hour meeting. It made sense. You know, like one thing we learned with fast twist, we stopped at 1 in 5 for 300 blackout, because before we were done testing twist, they adopted a very weak projectile that would open up out of the muzzle when you went to 1 in 4 twist. But we started chasing twist. It was never for, energy. It was always for the dispersion, for accuracy with subsonics, because big, long rifle bullets, you got to spin them fast to get accuracy. So the goal has always been 1 MOA to 300 meters since we started 8.6 with super and subsonic. And we know it's going to take a lot of work. Like, it's not a lazy project. And I think a lot of the ammo companies, the big ammo companies, got really lazy during COVID. But we started chasing it, and we're getting the dispersion that we wanted with 8.6 subsonic with 1 in 3. And then we did the gel test, and that's where we saw, because there was a certain supersonic bullet that they wanted to use. So we do the gel test on it, and we couldn't believe the performance in gel of the supersonic. And this is where it occurs to us that when you watch that in high-speed video, you see that initial wound cavity, and it looks like we shot the block with 300 Win Mag.
Right.
And then we realized, so it wasn't that we knew this was going to happen, but it makes sense. Like, right, when you're talking about subsonic a minute ago and you're limited by a certain linear velocity, well, rotational velocity, you have to have more rotational velocity to increase, to make a significant difference in the power that comes from rotational velocity, if that makes sense,
Sure,
over linear velocity. But some simple things to think about, like people don't understand or think about, like we've always had one way to measure muzzle energy. And the reason is all the twists were always the same for all cartridges, for all companies. Like, there wasn't faster twist. And that's when we started experimenting with this, and we saw it. And then it went on to shooting animals and things like that. But had the military not adopted 300 blackout so quickly, we would have ended up at a 1 in 3 twist, or a 1 in 2.5 with 300 blackout.
Wow.
Yeah. You see, there's a lot of things. It's difficult to make a subsonic rifle bullet expand, because, it's long and the face of the bullet's very small. And so they always rely on linear velocity. So you can just make a weak bullet and do it. So as you see bullets get better over time, there's a lot more solid coppers, bonded bullets, things like this. Well, you get very reliable expansion with fast twist ammo. So you can make a stronger bullet and it'll still expand. The bullet expands immediately on impact. And with fast twist, you also get much better penetration than slow twist. So for every downside to it, there is an upside. You think about there's 3 speeds on a blender. Why is that? Is fast twist not matter, or a human being 15 inches from under one armpit to the other? So with a traditional slow twist, the bullet probably doesn't even start expanding till it's several inches inside of you. So maybe you get one twist. So with fast twist, the bullet turns 5 times. Think of that cutting surface. And I even heard the ballistician from Hornady make a comment, kind of a flippant comment in one of the videos of, oh, well, the initial wound cavity, that doesn't really cause damage to the animal. It's like, do you not shoot animals? Like, are you serious? Because we went from, with 8.6, 1 in 10 twist to 1 in 7, and the initial wound cavity was probably 50% larger. When we went from 1 in 7 to 1 in 3, it's 3 times bigger than 1 in 7.
That's
and
huge.
So there are a lot of advantages. There are things to overcome. Like Hornady, when they were working with us on this project, started developing like hybrid powders or blended powders to fill up case capacity. We can also put a 450 grain bullet in sub-X bullet in 8.6 blackout, and you end up the same capacity as 338 arc. So why would you limit yourself with a 300 grain bullet, especially with them using slow twist? Like 338 arc, like I made a video talking shit, but it's like, it's a toy. Like I like it, and I love that they're supporting the silencer industry, and this kind of stuff. But to them, it's just a toy. Like their customer is more, I think, like Ruger's customer, for instance, or that's the way they view it. And I love Hornady ammo. I love the ELDX. I hunt with it all the time. And I don't think there's a lot of people that hunt more than I do, honestly. And I love a lot of their ammo. But, they've done some lazy things lately. But if you want to come out with 20 cartridges a year, like that's kind of what's going to happen probably. But 338 arc is going to be a lot of fun. But you're not going to get dispersion with 1 in 8 twists with a subsonic 338. Like we know, because we do all the testing. Like I didn't see in their release, I didn't see any, like where the gel test, where the accuracy test, where's all that? And the supersonic that's non-existent. I mean, if they want 16-inch barrels, sure, you'll get a bullet going supersonic, but most ARs and stuff, I don't know the percentage, but a lot of people with silencers, shorter barrels, arm braces, or SBRs, you're not going to get, there is no supersonic. It's 338 arc is just 338 Spectre. I mean, that's really what it is, which isn't a bad thing. Yeah. It's just, okay, what mag do you use? And if it's subsonic only, your bolt's probably going to last. But I think it's cool. And what they believe, in my opinion, is guys are going to buy it. It's super quiet. You'll have a big piece of steel in your backyard, and you'll impress your friends by shooting steel at 100 yards.
Yeah.
Like it's different than what we do. And to me, it's not even a competitor to 300 blackout, because with that, you get supersonic, and you can load that 255 grain 311 bullet and have a bullet that is, 45 grains less than their 338 bullet, but you'll get dispersion out of it. So I think it's probably more of a competitor to that.
I can see one of the draws to the 338 arc being it's a drop into an existing AR-15, right? So, and that will appeal to certain folks. Some folks are just averse to the AR-10. I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
But, and from one of the things that, from my discussions with the 338 arc to the 8.6, we have limited experience with it. Jay, how many rounds have we fired? 200 less than 200.
Oh, way less than 200.
150.
I would venture to guess, 120 to 140 rounds.
So, it's just because the sheer cost of it, right? So it's not like anybody's sending a case of 8.6 to play with. So we're just buying it when we can find it. And right now, we have relatively small ammo manufacturers, Fort Scott's, the Guerrilla Ammunitions of the world. Steinel just started doing it. I got some of their ammo, but we're still learning about the 8.6. But one of the things I see that the 8.6 has is case capacity. Now, Hornady brought up in our discussion that the case capacity could be an issue in the subsonics because how the powder lays in the case. You've already talked about blended powders, and I've known about that technology, or that fix, if you will, because I used to shoot 4570 a lot. And same thing, originally
and
a black powder cartridge with a large case volume that doesn't translate well to smokeless, but with special loads, it works just fine. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, they know about it as well. They know about it as well because they were working on it, for 8.6.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think at best it was disingenuous, some of the things that they said. And I like Hornady. I like their products. I mean, I think this was sort of a bottom feeding thing or low hanging. It's like they can do something. And they're right. Volume wise, like they want to sell metal bits and we want to innovate. Like these are different things. And yeah, most of the people that buy their ammo, goes in an AR-15. They want to shoot a steel plate at 100 yards and it be quiet. And that's cool. Like we build stuff, like we want to innovate and build stuff that's actually effective on target. This was a capability that the military didn't have, and that's why it was very interesting to us. So the case capacity thing, you can put a bigger bullet in it and blended powders. Some of the small ammo companies, there's work to do. I think it's a lot of work for Hornady to do. And, like when I did 300 blackout, Hornady had 0 military contracts. That wasn't part of their business. And that probably is now with PRC or whatever. But I don't look, it's cool for a lot of people. I think the idea of it being reliable is not the case. Because, that starts with the magazine, and I know you know that. That's where blackout to me is so good. And that's why the Creedmoor cases they did to me are so great. We have a boom box with a 16-inch 6 Creedmoor barrel that weighs 6 pounds and it's half MOA. And why in the world would you want to arc?
Yeah.
If you could have Creedmoor, I mean, that's like going from 308 to 300 Win Mag. So it's not a solution for everyone, but we're trying to provide systems. Like a thing a lot of people don't understand is like I make 0 money on ammo. Like me developing 8.6 blackout costs millions of dollars. Like I don't get paid for any of it.
Right.
Like Hornady gets paid to make ammo. Like I don't license it to them. It's open source for everyone. We're trying to provide a capability in the end, sell guns and silencers that'll go with it. But it's the innovation piece that we want. They're making the military ammo right now, a company in Las Vegas called Ultimate Ammo. And they're the ones making the sub-MOA, subsonic and supersonic ammo. And out of the 12-inch barrel, we've shot animals at over 500 yards in Africa with it.
Wow.
So, and I would do that every day. And I've shot animals to 300 meters with subsonic and a lot of different bullets. The new Gorilla 342 pork shredder or whatever they call it is great. The Maker's bullets are great. The Discreet ballistics, we work with all those companies like Discreet, for instance. We designed the tip for them, putting their bullets so it'll be reliable in a gas gun. With Makers, we work with them to get the shape of the bullet, the ogive correct to work in a gas gun reliably. And I know people will say with ARC or 338 Grendel or 6.8 SPC or whatever, Hornady Sub X 300 blackout. Oh, that's bullshit. It's totally reliable in my gun. And again, yes, in your particular gun. But, like we are delivering on a current contract for a European military, the Honey Badger, and it's a machine gun and it is for Sub X. And so the work that went into making that reliable with Sub X 300 blackout, there's nobody else that can do it. It took months to do it. And we have to use a C350 barrel extension because to get it to feed reliably, consistently across hundreds of guns, we had to lay the feed ramps over so much. It's so thin. We had to make it out of C350, the strongest material on the planet. So there's a lot of work that goes into all of these things. And this Ultimate Ammo company has done a great job and they've embraced it. And, so they're making the military ammo and the supers and subs are sub MOA.
So you brought up an interesting point.
So
I'm sorry, about the magazine. So I see that as being a big selling point because you correctly commented that it's something that I'm aware of, and you're correct. So one of the biggest gripes I've had about 6.5 Grendel and things like that over the years is the lack of quality and reliability in the feeding of the magazines. And one of the things one of the things that draws me to 300 blackout is I can literally get a Magpul drum magazine and with supersonics with the correct ogive, I can load that thing to capacity and run 300 blackout out of a drum. I can toss it into a regular Stenag military magazine. Now with the ogive of the subsonics, you can run into stacking issues, but they make specific Stenag type magazines that will feed both supers and subs. And so it's not rocket science. And for me, that is a huge selling point to 300 blackout. The fact I can use existing magazines I know are 100% reliable, and the cartridge itself doesn't take away from that reliability, as long as you're using the correct magazine for the correct load, being supersonic versus subsonic. So that is huge. Now, I also wanted to talk about the velocity. I'm sorry, not the velocity, but the twist rate a little bit more. Because one of the things that we both noticed when we first saw it, I think we were at an Iraq veteran shoot or something years ago, and we had our first experience with an 8.6. And the first thing I did was hinge that thing open and look down the barrel like, dude, I mean, it's the tightest twist I've ever seen. I'm almost like, how does this even work? And I think I said in the Hornady video that we did, it's like, how do you take a big heavy bullet and at supersonic velocities, cram it into a 1 and a 3 and not shave off a bunch of copper into the lands and grooves and foul your own barrel? How does this work, right? And so I do have a question about the 1 and 3 or even tighter twists. You're talking about 300 blackout, maybe even being 1.25 twist, which is like super tight. So how does that work? And are there concerns about fouling of the barrel, or is that just not a bullet design issue? What is it there?
No. Well, I mean, it's a couple things, right? Like you don't have to have full engagement on the length of the projectile. That's one. And, when we started this, here's some things that I've heard that just goes against what my company is. When it's like the folklore or they were taught this, so this must be true. And like what we do is actually test everything. We test everything to failure. Like we tested 1 and 2, 1 and 1 barrels. Like you think 1 and 3 is fast, you should look down a 1 and 1 barrel. and there's actually a place for it. It might not be in 8.6 or 300 blackout, but there's a place for 1 and 1. But most of the things I've heard these guys say is, even at the ammo companies, on your podcast, when they said, in Nebraska, we have a saying that nothing good happens after midnight or 300,000 RPMs.
I was going to ask about that. Yes.
Like where does that come from? Is that some engineer at Hornady in the 70s that was making like weak ass bullets like that SST? Like what we say here is like after midnight is fun and we're going to break everything to actually know, like when he tells the story of their ballisticians with someone who had a silencer and a 1 and 3 twist and the bullet expanded and hit the silencer. Yeah, that can happen with weak bullets. Sure. But also I assume you guys don't think 1 and 7 for 5.56 is stupid fast.
No.
Well, Hornady sells a 35 grain VMAX that'll explode every time you shoot it out of it.
I learned that in high school. I even told the story in the interview with them. I think it was a Hornady run. I believe it was a 40 grain bullet when the A2 first came out, A2 Sport or 2 Colt. And I had one and we went out to shoot. And long story short, we couldn't hit the target. It was hitting just fine at 55 grain, put the 40 grains in there, couldn't get it on a big old piece of cardboard at 100 yards. Like, what's going on? And finally, I saw what was happening. Every time the weapon was fired, there was a little gray cloud that appeared just in front of the firearm. The bullet was dusting itself. It was shredding the jacket from itself, and it was literally ripping itself apart in flight, and it never made it anywhere near the target at 100 yards.
Sure.
And so I've seen that.
And that's good with a slower, to have that weak bullet is really good for shooting varmints, and you just have to have the right twist. Yes. But you don't have to have, and they know you don't have to have solid copper, because we sent them 4 years ago the fixed rifle with a 1 and 3 twist for their own testing. Like they were making sub-X bullets for us for it. Like they know you don't have to have a solid copper bullet to work. You can't have the weakest bullet that was designed in 1964, for a 1 in 20 twist, but you just have to be reasonable with it. But we've shot every bonded and solid copper bullet there is, and we don't see them coming apart. And I'm pretty sure we've actually tested it all. But yeah, can you guarantee it with anything? No. And I think we don't care. It's sort of along the lines of that. Like if you want the 35 grain VMAX going 8,000 feet a second, you better get like a 1 in 12 twist. We're trying to solve not everybody's problem. We're trying to solve the major problem is a 300 meter problem. And we wanted the lightest, most compact weapon that would solve that problem, and nothing more than that. Now with the supersonics, we get twice the range out of it, but with the subsonic, a big long subsonic bullet spinning fast twist, you don't get as much drop with super or sub, and you get better penetration and you get more reliable expansion. So, an 8.6 is expensive right now. No one's doing it, but Hornady is a huge ammo company, and they're charging $40 for 338 arc.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's not that much more expensive or less expensive than 8.6.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, I think I pointed this out. With 300 blackout, when it first came out, it was not inexpensive. I mean, I was an early adopter, started playing with it pretty early on, and it was expensive, a couple bucks around. It was hard to find. Again, small ammunition manufacturers were the primary source of the ammo. But then you fast forward to where we are today, everybody under the sun is making 300 blackout. I can't remember if it was Lucky Gunner or one of the big online retailers said that 300 blackout was the third most popular cartridge they sell online right now from their website.
And it's why the price hasn't dropped. When we were originally working with Hornady on both of these, they said, because 300 blackout you load on the 5.56 machines, 223 machines, and 8.6 you load on 308 machines. So it's not a PRC cartridge that requires different machines and stuff. And so the way like Mitch Middlestat described it there was 300 blackout. It just comes to commodities and a little bit of efficiency as far as running the machines, how fast you can run them and stuff. But 300 blackout should have been within 20% the price of 223 at the time. And 223 at the time we did that was what a box of 20 was probably $5 a box.
Yeah, it was expensive back in the day.
Yeah, but that was the thing. So like Remington, those geniuses, what they said is, well, Corbon 300 Whispers, $45 a box. We can charge $43. It's like you make 4% on 223 at Bass Pro Shop. Why don't we just make 30% on 300 blackout and let us sell millions of rounds of that and actually make money? But, that didn't make sense. But Hornady also said, like when we had the discussion with 8.6 with them, they said it would be within 10% the price of 6.5 Creedmoor. And at the time, 6.5 Creedmoor was $23 a box. And they've used COVID now as like ammo's doubled since then, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, Winchester sent out a memo saying they're upping their prices 10% across the board. It's like they're just, it's gotten ridiculous how expensive everything is.
Yeah, I mean, I think 8.6, there's a lot of development to do by the big ammo companies. Like I can't do it all for them.
Yeah. Well, that was my next question was, are you in negotiations or discussions with some of the larger companies outside of Hornady, which I know you already have a relationship with? Are there other companies that are looking at picking up 8.6 that are just kind of weighing their options? Yeah. I mean, all we need is a couple of big names to jump in and start making mass quantities of ammo. We can start to see those prices come down.
Well, I mean, Taurus is about to release their bolt gun in 8.6.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's a big gun company, and it also their parent company happens to be the largest ammo company in the world. So there's that. We're in discussions with a couple of U.S. companies, and you'll see 8.6 resubmitted to Sammi this year and approved. I mean, it's all the votes at Sammi are unanimous. And like I see all this stuff online where they're like, well, Sammi refused it because of 1 in 3 twists. Like, no, that's not what happens. And they don't care what the twist is. They're just certifying the pressure safe. That's why all the votes are unanimous.
Gotcha.
And Hornady pulled it a week before, I heard their PR guy allude to them having military contracts for that in your thing. And maybe, but I don't think so. But we'll see, but we'll see it resubmitted this year, and we'll see big ammo companies making it. And it'll become public sooner than later that, that not only military, our military, but others are going to adopt 8.6.
Really? Wow. I can't wait to see those news reports.
Yeah. I mean, those are, well, it's again, we go back to 300 blackout. This is the same thing I heard about 300 blackout from everybody. Everybody's an ammo genius and industry genius, and none of the gun companies were going to make it. None of the ammo companies were going to make it. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean,
we'll see the same thing.
The online gun community tends to poo-poo new stuff. You come out with a new cartridge like 8.6 and like, oh, well, why would I want that over 308? I just use my 308. Well, yeah, they do make subsonic 308s, but your gas gun just became a bolt action. I mean, it's like they automatically poo-poo things. I think the 30 Super Carry has great potential, but it got poo-pooed.
30 Super Carry is the most awesome thing that's been introduced that the market is too stupid to realize.
What's so funny is we said that for the penetration, the feeding, this everything.
The weight, velocity, terminal performance, mag capacity, it falls short nowhere.
Everything. A pocket gun with 20 rounds. Right. Yeah, and that an 8-year-old could shoot. Like the cartridge makes so much sense. And Hornady's really good at marketing, and Federal has really sucked at marketing, and that's unfortunate. And a lot of the companies have, and Hornady kind of found their niche, and everybody. But I see them. It's very lazy for Hornady to do. Basically, I created a market for this 8.6 cartridge. And what they're doing is very lazy, in my opinion. And I like Hornady, and I'll say it. I'll say it to them too.
Oh, I know you would.
I did say it but it's like having a kid that has so much potential, and then they get lazy. And that's what I see, like a 1 in 8 twist, and that's fine. But don't tell people, allude to problems with 1 in 3, and then that 1 in 8 is correct. 1 in 8 is, the whole thing is they don't want to be blamed for some silencer blowing up. Like it's not like you're not going to see any technical data or videos showing where 1 in 8 is superior to 1 in 7, 1 in 5, 1 in 3. It's not. You're going to be less accurate, and it's less energy on target.
And so,
like it's a toy.
Would ammo? I guess it depends on bullet design. Gun manufacturers could make rifles that have a faster twist rate for the 338 arc, but then you run afoul of the bullet that was designed for the slower twist rate, right? You start spinning it too fast, you could shed your jacket, or you're going to be relying on solid coppers.
I mean, we already know the sub X bullet survives 1 in 3. Like I've shot animals to 300 meters with the sub X, the 315 grain they were making.
Wow.
So it's great, and I got great dispersion with it.
I don't think I have any of those, do I?
And it's so they have it in 300 blackout, the 190 or whatever it's called, or whatever it is. But we had, they were delivering us years ago a 338 sub X bullet. It was a 315 grain. And but it's like, and that bullet doesn't look impressive in gel. And so I was worried about it because it doesn't expand, it just deforms a little bit. It's just a lead slug with a thin copper jacket over it. And, but you get great penetration, and it kills. Like I killed zebra, eland, Cape buffalo, and everything except the Cape buffalo over 200 meters with that. So I got a pass through on a zebra at 300 meters with a sub X 315 grain.
Bullet design isn't one of those things that one size fits all. You take a look at, penetration. Dangerous game is a completely different type of hunt than a deer, right? A lot of dangerous game has much thicker hide, larger bones. Think about a black bear versus, a Midwest whitetail.
Yeah.
And so you have those concerns. So I know that, like, for 44 Magnums, hard cast lead, a lot of people prefer that over a rapidly expanding bullet. They just want to, poke a hole in it and dig in as deep as possible and worry less about expansion. And so I guess that's possible as well with the 8.6, doing a subsonic, a big heavy bullet, not necessarily designed to expand, but to dig in deep into dangerous game, or, something that takes a little bit deeper wound, which you're going to lose if it has rapid expansion. So you can design the bullet for the job, right? And then,
I agree and disagree, honestly, Tim. It's like we're learning so many things with fast twist that some of the traditional beliefs, this changes stuff. And I think it's when I was mocking Hornady about the midnight and 300 RPM comment. Like things change and evolve and innovate, and the sub X bullet compared to like the discrete ballistics or the makers, when you shoot and pull it out of gel or an animal, which I've done both dozens of times, it looks like shit. You would never pick it, but I would say this: I love the sub X bullet. The shape needs to be a little better, but for feeding, but other than that, the bullet really kills, because when you have fast twists, you don't need the full expansion because the bullet is spinning so much faster and you get so much more cutting surface. And it's not that I'm just poking a hole through it with the Sub-X. It deforms enough, and when it's spinning rapidly, you're getting, a hole double the size, maybe not quadruple the size like you would with a Maker's bullet or a discrete ballistics bullet, but it is more than enough to kill big animals every time. So I'm actually a believer in the Sub-X bullet. And if you just showed me, everybody loves seeing fully expanded copper bullets. It looks great, but it's not necessarily more lethal. But we're seeing things like that they're not the normal rules for slow twist. And, I'll send you, I'll do it right now. I'll send you the first animal I ever killed. And we saw that it was a 210 grain Barnes out of a 16-inch 8.6 1-in-3 twist. When I saw that high speed, I watched the gel test and we watched it in high speed. I couldn't wait to go shoot an animal. I shot a whitetail at 50 yards, and it'll take me a second to find it, but I'll text it to you. This is one shot on a whitetail at 50 yards out of 16-inch 1-in-3 twists. And it is one of the worst wounds I've ever seen. It looks like, I don't even know how to explain it. I'll let you explain it when you see it. It's incredible.
Yeah, but my point about slow bullets that dig in deep sometimes you want to trade rapid expansion and stopping quickly and energy dump for digging in deeper. Was my point, comparing hard cast to something that, so if you can design a bullet to dig in deep, or you can design a bullet to expand rapidly and dump the energy in a shorter distance. Again, that's a bullet design issue, not necessarily a cartridge, assuming you have what you need: the weight of the bullet, the velocity of the bullet, surface area, sectional density, all that other stuff that could be factored into making those calculations.
Fast twist often gives you both now. The bullets expand on impact and you get 30 inches of penetration. I mean, it's different. It's different when you get the RPMs up. What happens? It's like on your drill press, having different speed drills. Like, why do we have, variable speed drill presses? It's the same thing. Did you get the text that I sent you?
Yep, it came through. Oh wow, yeah, we'll throw this up.
That is,
oh my goodness.
That is the exit wound. That was at 50 yards broadside. It did a barrel roll in the air, and I didn't touch her before I took that picture. But look at all the bones sticking out of that. Like, I've never seen a wound like that, not even with 300 Win Mag or 300 normal.
Yeah, that's insane. And that's the exit wound. So I'll throw that up so our viewers can see that.
That's wild.
That's nasty. It looks like it totally destroyed the shoulder. The leg is totally broken. And then you have a gaping hole right in the front of the chest. So yeah, she went down quick and about as painless as you could ever hope to be dispatched. But that's really, really interesting. So yeah, I mean, this is totally new to me. I've never shot anything living with a projectile that's being spun that quickly, and it's really going to be interesting to see what it can do. We still have yet to do our gel tests, which will be coming up here soon, and we're really looking forward to seeing what the cartridge is capable of. Right now, we're in the phase of we have a CMMG Descent in 8.6. That's what we have for a test rifle at the moment. And we're just learning more about the rifle itself and a little bit about the cartridge. But before we ever make our video talking about it, we definitely have ballistic tests and things like that to do. But we've gotten velocity data, accuracy information stuff, at least as it relates to the CMMG. But it will be interesting to see what it can do.
What about the pressure differences between subs and supers on 8.6 versus 300 blackout? Because I noticed while suppressing, you know what I mean? We had to adjust the gas block for the supers and then readjust for the subs because the pressure differences seemed different.
Right. So one of the things, obviously, that Hornby's talking about is the consistent pressure, 45,000 PSI or whatever they were saying about the 338 arc. With the 8.6, is it much like 300 blackout where you have a much lower pressure for the subs versus the supers? And how does that work?
Well, the first thing with the 8.6, if you need anything with ammo or rifles or anything, you do that test, just let me know and I'll get you guys hooked up with some stuff.
I appreciate that.
If you need different types of ammo. So the pressure difference isn't quite the same as with 300 blackout. But a lot of it has to do with the system as well. I mean, I would think they could just do some refinement. I don't know what that gun is, honestly, so I can't speak to it. But we've got 8-inch, 12-inch, 14-inch, and 16-inch machine guns that operate with both without adjusting the gas system. Okay. Some of it is just putting the work into that. Yeah, Hornady again, like Hornady's comment on that is really so you can do every AR-15 from PSA to your Knight's armament that'll work doing this. And that's not really what we do, but they don't really have a supersonic. Like if you're going to have a 16-inch barrel, like their supersonic is sort of a supersonic. So that contributes to like the pressure difference as well. But they also, if you up the pressure of the subsonic, it gets loud.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a better silencer and you're going to get more sound from it. So, our goal is like we build the system, and that's where some of this stuff that they've done or said, it's like, I wish the ammo companies would work with gun companies. It's just like doing the PRCs and all the different links, and the 300 PRC being longer than a typical Magnum action. Like you got to have a delivery system, and then come back to the ARC cartridges, where I love the Creedmoor and I can't stand the ARC. Like you and I were both there when they did 6.8 SPC, and I think you like that cartridge. And
I do.
Again, it's good for killing, but you're never going to get the reliability in an M4. You have to build the whole gun.
Yeah,
and that's why we build silencers and guns and develop ammo.
And to that point, my favorite 6.8 SPC, the one I shoot the most, is the LWRC that was purposely built around the cartridge, because it does not work in a standard Snag magazine. It will work.
Yeah.
The SPC2.
Didn't Magpul make those mags?
They do. Yeah.
So the mags are a little
longer.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't think they make them anymore.
Really? I gotta get more. You tell me that.
I have to look.
I hoard them because I love that gun.
I don't think they. I want to say LWRC.
It was wider, right?
What was that, Kevin?
They're wider, aren't they? They made
a little wider and a little longer.
Receivers.
Yeah, the receivers a little wider in the magwell, a little longer. And again, and it's so funny you should say that. Here's an ammo company not working with the gun company, because when Remington developed that, it's like the selling point was, you can just put it into your existing M4 rifle. It's just a simple swap, and you can make it work. It's less than ideal, and to get it to work ideally, they had to redesign the rifle and customize the rifle around the cartridge.
Yeah. I mean, it's what you have to do. And like I like shooting 6 ARC out of our minifix. I really like it. There's no recoil. Feeds good enough in a bolt gun, but there's no like something people don't like about AR-10s, right? There's no standard for it, not for the mags, not for the guns. And it's the same thing like ARC. We're doing that again. And with like 6.8 SPC, there's no standard.
Right.
So for the bolts or for the mags, but 6 ARC shooting wise, it's a cool cartridge. For me, our minifix and our fix, there's not enough size and weight difference to really matter. Like both guns are very small and light. The cartridge is fun to shoot out of that, but what mags do you use? $135 Geisley mag? Like I don't know. Which that's not a big deal, I guess, for most people. But I just feel like we keep learning this lesson every time. You want to put it in an M4, but you want to change the mag and the bolt and the barrel. I haven't seen it work successfully yet. In like 22 ARC. I mean, how many times are we going to try that? I mean, it's cool if you shoot varmints, maybe, but
I haven't played with that one yet. I know you're interested in it.
Yeah, I was interested in it.
224 Valkyrie.
It's what it reminds me of. It's the 224 Valkyrie.
Yeah, that thing fell on its face, unfortunately. I mean, that was a cartridge that just wasn't ready for prime time. The manufacturers weren't up to speed. There were just so many things that really contributed to its launch problems. You were going to say something about 224, Kevin?
Well, no, I mean, we just watched it happen already. Yeah. Like, I like the Creedmoor cartridges. So the idea is to like build a weapon system that is up to date. Like we don't need 10-pound AR-10s. It's not necessary. Right. We can't necessarily, you can make stuff big and heavy and durable way easier and cheaper than you can make lightweight and compact and more usable and make that affordable. Like our guns are expensive, but you guys should come do a build.
Yeah, we have to
come see what we do here and see all the testing. It's like when we did the trigger for the ARs, which we never wanted to make triggers, but if we're going to do it, we know we're going to end up with military contracts. So we go ahead and do the NATO and the US drop test. That's 18 months. We high-speed video every single drop. And it makes stuff expensive when you do it the way we do, and you do the testing that we do.
Yeah.
And so we don't make, these guns like the boombox. It has to be reliable for the military, not for like Uncle Rodney. Like that's not a real thing to us.
So with regards to the 8.6, what's the optimal barrel length? If I'm going to buy an 8.6 and I was asking you, like, I want to shoot both supers and subs, I'm primarily interested in hunting. I do some target shooting just, for fun, but the current prices, that's a little limited, but for hunting, it certainly makes more sense. What would you say would be the optimal barrel length for the 8.6?
Well, with 300 blackout, the military picked 9 inches, and that was because the silencer that they had and that barrel length that would go into the same racks and cases that were important to them or something. But with supersonic, you get more performance out of 12 inch. Okay. So with 8.6, we did 12 inches for super and sub, and that's a great length. And you can have 16 inch and you just get more, linear and rotational velocity. For the supersonic, but subsonic, 8 inch is the best length, because with subsonic bullets, it's so long and so slow that you want the least amount of time in barrel, because between 8 and 12 inches or 8 and 16 with subsonics, what actually has a negative impact on the dispersion or the accuracy is like the human input. You think about if you had a 4-foot long barrel for your supersonic 300 blackout, it's not going to shoot as good. You're going to influence the bullet as the human in the barrel that long, because it's still in the bullet's still in the barrel.
When the gun starts moving in the shooter. Yeah.
So if that makes sense, I think what I tell people is if you want to do both, it's the 12 inch. If you want subsonic only, it's the 8 inch. And the supersonic 8.6, I've killed animals to 300 meters with supersonic out of the 8 inch 8.6. So it's still effective. The supersonic is.
Okay.
So I think that's the balance, right? You need super and sub.
So 12 inch would be the ideal length. So I'm asking for my own selfish reasons, because I want to get the optimal setup for 8.6 at some point. With the 300 blackout, there was a question there I had about 300 blackout versus 8.6, and it's eluded me. Boy, is there anything else, Jay, that we need to cover off on? Because with regards to the 338 arc and
pressures, things like that, suppressors. I know AR-10s historically have Huxworks is basically the only suppressor that you could ever really put on an AR-10 to have it run reliably.
Without adjustable gas blocks.
Right, without an adjustable gas block or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
As far as suppression goes for supers and subs for 8.6, have you run into any issues using traditional baffles?
I don't use flow through on subs. We learned a long time ago.
Right, on that but supers and things like that have they?
Yeah.
We're actually coming out with a line of flow through cans, but that's a military project. And I'm actually I hate flow through, but was impressed with this design that our guys ended up coming up with and executing for flash and relative sound performance. Listen, we do the majority of our testing with silencers, probably 90% of it.
Me too.
Because it's harder on the gun. And shooting without silencers just sucks.
It does suck. Should be sold together.
Yes.
I know. Once you suppress something, you never go back to unsuppressed.
Yeah.
No. So, so we developed cans for that. And we generally focus on the performance of the subsonic, because like almost all rifle caliber supersonic, it's still loud.
Yeah, it is.
And so we really try to focus our designs on the subsonic ammo and get the best performance out of that. So like our little pork chop silencer, and another reason, like it's not called the pork chop for the military, but that's steel, and it's a process that we developed to make lightweight steel cans. So our steel cans are actually lighter than our titanium cans.
Oh, wow. I got to play with that. We got to get out there and see you, because I know you're working on some cool stuff.
Yeah. So, lots of stuff, but because there's no sparking or flash at night with the steel versus the titanium. Okay. I don't even remember your question on the silencers now, but we try to build like specifically for the best thing in a system. I've got a long history in silencers, and now doing the guns and making the things together makes a lot of sense to me. But I offer 2 links in most silencers, because for subsonic or for hunting or just, hanging out in the backyard and impressing my friends, I want the quietest thing possible. And I want the shortest thing that doesn't ring my ears, or the shot that I don't notice when I'm hunting or shooting supersonic. So I want light and compact for that. And I want the quietest thing possible for subs. So, again, it's sort of like mission specific for me. Like we don't really focus on a lot of universal, or it does this. But like the gun with the 8.6, the gas gun, one of the conditions, one of the design requirements, that it was a non-adjustable gas block going from supers and subs. Because what we find is military-wise, even with 300 blackout, usually it's a few rounds of subsonic, and then the rest are supers, and all the other magazines are supers. And there's a reason for that with the guys that use that kind of cartridge.
Right.
You know, if they shoot more than a couple shots, they're in a gunfight. Right.
And then silence isn't so important anymore.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's exactly why.
And this brings up an interesting point with regards to silencers. One of the selling points that Hornady had mentioned was that, you know, the 338 ARC will work with some handgun silencers. What's the top operating pressure on the supersonic side of the 8.6? And, you know, at least with the subsonics, I'm assuming same thing applies, right? You can use a handgun can that can handle the pressure. At subsonic, what about supersonic? What's your top peak pressure there? And is that okay with the handgun can?
Well, I mean, it's right. It depends on the load, right? And it's right at 60,000 PSI. Okay. When you push the pressures,
that's pretty high.
So when you push the pressures as high as you possibly can, you generally don't get good dispersion and stuff like that. Like other things start to go wrong.
We've seen
so most of the loading, but we design it to be able to work with that, if that makes sense. So the highest pressure round out of the shortest barrel is how we determine. And then we just do destructive testing to determine, because, you know, we want to make the can as light and compact as possible. And so the way you figure that out is not the lazy way. You build the thing you want and you break it and you go from there, and you keep breaking it and breaking it and breaking it and breaking it until you have something that meets the design requirement. So that's kind of what, you know, that's the approach that we take.
Okay.
I don't think that's what most people do, but that's what
so
we
you
do.
Could probably get away with a handgun can that's suitable for the subsonics, most definitely. You do want to be a little bit careful with the supers, make sure you're not running max pressure. The 60,000 PSI would be pretty heavy for a 9mm can. But
I don't ever do that sort of thing. I mean, that's a benefit for Hornady to say, because they don't have to repair or fix silencers.
Yeah.
So, and when the customer asks me that, like, I don't do that testing. And, you know, we've got a great warranty. And if you blow the core off your silencer, you send it in, we just put a new one on it. If it's a pistol can, you know, we just put a new baffle stack on it. It's fine. But I don't go do all of that testing. Like, we have too much to do. And I test 8.6 and 8.6 silencers. I test 9mm and 9mm silencers. We're trying to make the best thing for what it is. And I know it's very popular with silencers. Like probably Silencer Co. started that whole thing with the Harvester or whatever they call it, where it's like a 46 bore to shoot everything through it. Well, those suck, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not good at anything.
Right.
And we're trying to be great. And it requires the testing, and it requires focus and building a system sometimes, and specific cans for, because like you said, it's once you suppress a gun, you don't go back. So we know that. I mean, I assume we all have a bunch of silencers, so I'm not swapping my silencer around a bunch. Yeah.
And I get that. Like, you're absolutely right. I don't find suppressors like the 46 Bushwhacker to be an impressive can for its intended role, which was to be a, you know, just buy one silencer and you can put it on 22 all the way up to 4570. Well, yeah, I guess if you just want to buy one silencer, but we're in the age of like 3-day turnaround times on NFA paperwork. We may even get to the point in this administration that's coming in that we might even get suppressors off the registry finally. So that's not really a concern of mine. And like you said, I buy suppressors. If I buy a new rifle, I want to have a can that's dedicated to it. As Jason well knows, once I get a weapon set up and it's shooting like really, really well, I'm not going to start pulling parts off of it, pirate it. Yeah, I'm not going to mess with it. I'm going to basically weld everything into place, and that gun is set up, leave it alone, build the next one. So, all right, man.
That's right.
All right, Jay, any other questions? Anything that we didn't cover, Kevin, that you'd want to get out there with regards to 8.6?
I mean, I don't know, you know, all the things. I'll look through my list of stuff here.
Well, I will say that, you know, we're going to continue our testing with the 8.6. I do want to come out and see you. Yeah, I want to see the stuff that you're working on. I want to play around with the boom box and all that stuff to learn as much as I possibly can about the 8.6, because as you know, the 300 blackout is one of those things that I've derived tremendous, you know, entertainment from. Things like it blows my mind. So the 1-in-5 twist on my SIG Rattler, and I have both a Gen 1 and a Gen 2. And my first one, you know, they had shorter barrels. And they say, well, it has a 5-inch barrel with a 1-in-5 twist. And conventional wisdom would be, well, you got to do one complete revolution in the barrel to get optimal accuracy. And this kind of breaks that because the chamber eats up some of that 5-inch barrel. So you don't really have 5 inches of rifling in there. Dude, I overthought it, because when I took that rifle out and started shooting it at distance, I mean, we had Mr. Guns and Gear out, and we were shooting with a red dot RMR at 250 yards, and I had a 5-shot group like that on steel.
That's awesome.
And I was just like,
yeah, I mean, that's every shot in a silhouette. Yeah.
And so now I have a 2nd-gen Rattler, and of course, DDs and all sorts of different 300 blackouts. They all shoot really, really well, supers and subs. And so that's one of the things that really has endeared me to the 300 blackout. The fact that I can get away with a barrel that long and still with supers have effective performance out to 250, 300 yards. That's mind blowing to me. And that's the type of innovation I like seeing. And that's one of the reasons, again, why 300 blackout and 8.6 and other cartridges are interesting to me.
Well, you think about 45-70. What's that? A 1 in 20 twist. So if you have a 16-inch barrel, you're not getting one revolution then either.
No, you're not. You're not. And like I said, conventional wisdom. This is the discussion forums of the internet conventional wisdom. This is what people say when they poo-poo things, right? Versus actually going out and testing and going, this works great.
Well, that was some of the disappointment, I guess, with me, with Hornady, with their launch. Like, I want to support them. It's great. I'll sell silencers. I love them supporting silencers and things like that. But it's like, it was sort of like, to me, knowing some of this, like half truths. And yeah, that's cool, I guess. But don't like, it's not 8.6, not in any way. I don't even think it's 300 blackout. Not that it's not going to be a riot to shoot and that there aren't cool aspects of it. But it's just not that. One thing I did, barrel life came up.
Yes.
And I think maybe in y'all's podcast, you asked me this. That's another one. So, we didn't know either when we started this, right? But traditionally 308 barrels last forever. 338 barrels last forever, but fast twists, we didn't know. Well, so for the military submission for the gas gun, we committed to, and we sort of wrote the requirement to some degree, because this has never been done. And it's like, what do we want the goals to be, and what do we think we can do? And this isn't for, the entry level crowd. This is for some of the most elite guys in the world. And so it's like, okay, 10,000, we want to commit to M4, but we want better dispersion than the M4 requirement. But the one thing we didn't know was barrel life. But so we started at sub MOA, and at 10,000 rounds after the durability test, we're under 2 MOA. So the barrel life, even with fast twists, when you get a big bore over 30 cal, it seems, when you're running normal pressures, the barrels last. And we didn't know with fast twist until we did the testing. But that's one thing I wanted to bring up, because that's something that we're just realizing now.
Now, are you chroming your barrels at all to extend barrel life, or is that just no? Okay.
No, here's the thing, right? Like barrel life. So you hard chrome them, but why is the M4 requirement 4 inches? Like, I mean, what AR would you buy and not send back if it shot 4 inches?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't realize the M4 accuracy is about 4 MOA, 3 to 4 MOA. I mean, that's what the government expects.
A lot of them, I mean, some shoot better, but the real variance in that is just, it's the hard chroming. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't control the thickness and you can't control the plating of it. So it's kind of like, okay, how long do you want the barrel to last? What's the firing schedule? And then you would always want, cut or buttoned, and you don't, everything you add to a barrel, whether it's nitriding, hard chroming, parkerizing, you're adding something to the barrel that you don't completely control. Right. And so it's never good for dispersion. That doesn't mean you can't get a hammer forged barrel, hard chrome hammer forged barrel that's chrome lined that's not going to shoot good, but get 1,000 of those and get 1,000 of a good button rifle stainless barrel. And I say stainless so there's nothing added to it, or a cut rifle. Get 1,000 of those, and like, the accuracy difference is going to be huge.
I will say, there's one gun that defies logic. That the Rattler obviously defied logic in one way, but another gun that defies logic is a cold hammer forged barrel that's chrome lined, and every single example we've ever fired is capable of easily MOA in a little under 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and that's the SCAR.
What's that?
It's the SCAR.
The SCAR, really?
I've never fired a SCAR. I've owned 3 of them.
SCAR 17.
SCAR 17, not the 5.56.
Yeah.
The 5.56 is just like an M4. It just slings lead. But the 308, for whatever reason, every SCAR 20s, the 6.5 Creedmoor, not so much. It's definitely the 30 cals. they just consistently put down the goods. I can't explain it. It's a hammer forged chrome lined barrel, and darn things shoot lights out. But you're absolutely right. That's not the norm. That is not the norm.
Not the norm, and it's a sample size of 3.
Exactly.
But that is great if they're able to do that. But 308 to me inherently shoots very good. Like, it does. The Fix, our bolt gun, is very lightweight, and so it's harder to shoot in a 308 than a heavy 308. Mm-hmm. And some people don't understand that, and they think they'll shoot, the gun's not accurate. They're shooting 3 MOA. They send it to me with their ammo, and I shoot 3/4 of an inch group, 5-shot groups. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. It's not because I'm in New Hampshire that it shoooots differently, but it is a real thing.
Well, every gun is a little different. Yeah, I mean, we've documented this.
Yeah.
Like we always bring up the 716i. This is a gun that was a 2.5-inch gun.
What is that?
The SIG 716i. It's available in 6.5 or 308. It was a gas gun. They don't make it anymore.
It was a 716P. I want to see because it was a piston Gen 2 DMR rifle.
Yeah, it was a piston AR-10 SIG made for a while, and it didn't do well. But we would get it out, and Jason had one. We'd take it out, and we'd shoot it, and it would shoot either really good or really, really bad. And we're like, what is the difference here? Yeah. And so we'd like push it into the bag and really bear down on the rifle, and it would shoot crappy. I think I don't get this backwards. And then we just barely touch the thing, lay it on the bag, just barely touch it. Don't put your cheek on the stock, and just pull straight back, minimal touching, minimal interaction with the rifle, and the thing would shoot, 1 MOA or better groups. So the gun was very sensitive to how it was being fired. I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration when they're learning a new firearm. You can't always shoot every rifle the exact same way. There's certain rifles I can just bear down on that want me to bear down on them, and I get the best groups out of them. And the other rifles, it just wants me to barely touch it. So,
well, it's cool to hear this because it's obvious like you do a lot of shooting, and
a little bit.
Like, this is my 31st year in the industry, and I'm obsessed with it. Like, I've been passionate about it. It's the second company that I've built that's been successful. And, I don't think it's because I'm like great at business or I'm the smartest guy in the world or any of that. I think I'm completely obsessed with it. And so I'm always a student of it in every regard. And like, when you think you know a lot about guns, but you've not been involved in a lot of testing, come here and spend a couple months here and realize what you don't know about guns. Cause we are learning
every day
100 things a year that we didn't know. But the shooting part of it it's interesting, for the SIG. So the SIG, I think it's the gun, the 716. Mm-hmm. That's what it's called? Yeah. So when I was there, we worked on one, me and 2 of the engineers that started Q with me, that we sold to CANSOF, the Canadian Special Forces. And that won the contract, had AR gold triggers because Geisley's would double. So it was a no-go on the contract.
I know that, yeah.
And we shot those guns. And as we're building those guns, a couple of the guys that could really shoot from the Army Marksmanship Unit, they realized if you put the AccuEdge, mm-hmm. they could shoot a 1/4 inch better groups at 100. So 1/4 inch better than without it. So the movement does make some difference. But then what that would do, it could generate some reliability problems. And so, it's kind of like it is. And it's like, but you have a little loose fit between the upper and the lower, but when you put a loaded mag in, that goes away too. And I think of it because some people say it to us, so you get a Noveske rifle, which are very nice and they look great and the fit is really tight, but we don't go that route in our boombox and the Honey Badger and everything. There's movement between the upper and the lower. But when you put in a loaded mag, it takes that up. But what it does do, it makes a difference in reliability of the gun. Yeah. When you think about it, you're an old guy like me. It's like, 1911s, and it's like a 1911 that's all hand fitted. Yeah. Ooh, feels great. But those things shoot a few mags. You better take it apart and clean it because it's not reliable.
So I was actually going to tell that story because that's a great analogy. I was talking to Les Bear at a show one time, and Ed Brown, rest his soul. Yeah. And, Ed Brown's philosophy was, and he'd tell it to you, I want rattle in my 1911, just enough. I'm not saying I want a sloppy fit like, a well-used 45-year-old 1911 that's in the U.S. military, but I need a little bit of movement because that's where I get my reliability. I'm finding a balance between accuracy and reliability. Les Bear, on the other hand, he would fit his gun so tightly, you would actually really need a wrench to get your bushing off. And many times you pull the slide back and let it go, just go shh and close, and sometimes you have to tap it forward if you didn't just really sling it, right? And so but that was two different philosophies. And I know from experience, the Les Baer guns are great match, like bullseye match guns, but they are not something you want to carry into the dirt, right?
They're going to shoot groups, but you're going to be cleaning it 10 times more often to get any reliability out of it.
Yep. So everything's,
so that's, I did.
What's that? Yeah, everything.
Just think
of striking a balance, because every time you make a gun more accurate, you potentially take away reliability or some other quality. So everything is about striking a balance, which I think translates well to what we're talking about here with regards to 8.6 and 338 and stuff like that. There's a lot of things to take into consideration.
Another thing that we did, and going back to case capacity, so we designed and made restricted case capacity cases out of brass and aluminum and steel and polymer. So basically it'd be the bullet diameter to the bottom, so you could use, you're restricting case capacity and you can really control it. But what we found, especially with the ultimate ammo stuff we were talking about in hybrid and mixed powders, is it wasn't offering any better dispersion, because what you really want are the SDs, where like ultimate ammo, we shot some of their stuff yesterday. I was getting things zeroed for Africa. And of course we always use a little Garmin now. Those things are so
amazing.
Great.
Yeah. The zeros.
And the SDs were under 2.
Wow. And
that's more important, especially with subsonic. When you want to get dispersion, you have to control the SDs. And it's not just case capacity. They're using full size cases, but they're using proper powders that Hornady's aware of. But they're controlling their process. It's like where you might want an Ed Brown philosophy and not a mass production philosophy is when it comes to loading precision ammo. And so it seems like the loading is really the thing, because we still have the restricted case capacity cases, but we don't really use them anymore because there's no benefit any longer. It was really controlling the case capacity with the powders, but getting the SDs right. And that, for instance, I shot a 14.5 boombox the other day in 6 Creedmoor with Hornady ELDX ammo that I hunt with, that I love. The extreme spread was 130 feet a second.
Yeah. And it just
like that is dog shit loading.
Yeah.
Dog shit loading.
For the record,
and that's their premium ammo.
For those folks watching, when Kevin says SD's talking about standard deviation, and that's a phrase used to say this round went 2,000 feet per second, this round went 2,020 feet per second. That 20 feet per second difference is your deviation. And you want to minimize that, right? And I think we talked about that in one of the live streams that we were doing for our Patreons, where we were live streaming our testing just for our Patreons to watch, so they can see in real time what our testing looks like. And we saw some loads from certain manufacturers that had wild standard deviations, like 60, 80 feet per second.
This had the standard deviation of over 70.
Wow.
And
that's not good.
With 6 Creedmoor, which is a precision round, and that Hornady is capable of loading some of the best ammo in the world. But like this particular lot that we got is shit. But then it's actually really good for us to get, because when we're doing right now, what we're doing with the boombox is there's 308, there's 8.6, 6 Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor, and there's various barrel lengths and super and sub with 8.6. And so we're doing testing. So like having that extreme spread within a lot of ammo is good, because we can see the reliability of the gun with ammo that is subpar.
Yeah.
So, there are some benefits to it for us, but overall, I wasn't excited to go hunt with that ammo.
No, I wouldn't be either.
No, I mean, I shoot animals to, 700-800 yards in Africa. So,
man, I've never been over there to hunt. I know that you're getting ready to spin up another hunt. I wish you a great hunt and a safe trip, but,
thank you so much.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I follow you on social media. I see the hunts that you're going on. I try to catch all the posts, but I definitely will be watching to see your most recent exploits. I want to thank you, Kevin, for taking the time and reaching out to come on the show to talk about the 8.6, because like I said, we're currently in the middle of testing 8.6 ourselves. We're learning as much as we possibly can before we make our first video, because we want to do the cartridge justice, as we try to do in pretty much all of our testing. So,
oh, that's awesome. Well, anything you run into there, we've probably done more testing than anyone, I would assume. So I'm happy to like talk about it with you, or if you see any anomalies or anything strange, I'll let you know. And man, come go with me to Africa sometime. I'm there 6 months a year. I've got a great place. We hunt on 500,000 acres in the mountains in the Eastern Cape. And it's the most wonderful place on the planet.
That's like a dream hunt. I mean, if you're a hunter going to Africa at least once in your life, not inexpensive, but boy, I mean, just about everything. And it'd just be great to try all the different meats and stuff you could harvest out there. But all right, Kevin, well, thank you again so much for coming on the show and explaining to us.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, man, it means a lot. And I will be in touch because I will have questions. And I do want to come out and see you and check out some of the work that you guys are doing and see the testing. And we'll document that for our viewers. Folks, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel so we can continue to bring you content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. We do have a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the thank you and subscribe button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash either one of those buttons. You can help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Thank you for 16 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper Custom, and we'll talk to you guys soon.